The studio lights felt too bright. Commander Zexithera shifted in the specially made chair, trying to find a comfortable position. The mechanical arms clicked softly as they moved. The left leg replacement made a small whirring sound. 50 years had passed since the war ended, but the pain never stopped. Across from the old commander sat Kira Moldovan, the human journalist. She looked young, maybe 40 in human years. Her brown hair was pulled back and her eyes were kind but sharp. Zexithara wondered if she knew the truth about what her people had done during the war. "Thank you for agreeing to this interview, Commander," Kira said. Her voice was calm and professional. This is the first time any coalition veteran has spoken publicly about the First Terran War. Zexithara's 4 good arms adjusted the translator device on the collar. The mechanical ones remained still. Speaking about the war was not easy. The nightmares still came every sleep cycle. No alien doctor understood them. How could they? No other species had fought humans and lived to remember. "Before we begin," Kira continued, "I want our viewers to understand the historical context. 50 years ago, the Galactic Coalition made first contact with humanity. Within 6 months, war broke out. The official records state that the Coalition achieved victory in 18 months. Is that correct?" The commander's throat made a sound like grinding metal. It was supposed to be laughter, but it came out wrong. "Victory," Zexithera repeated. "Yes, that is what the records say. You sound like you disagree with the official version." "I disagree with many things, human Kira. I disagree with the word victory. I disagree with the timeline. I disagree with calling it a war at all." Kira leaned forward slightly. "What would you call it instead?" "A learning experience. A very expensive one." The commanders realized, the ones that still worked properly, stared at something beyond the cameras. The mechanical eye in the center of the forehead clicked as it focused and refocused automatically. "Let me ask you about the beginning," Kira said. "When the Coalition first approached human space, what were the expectations?" Zexithera's memories drifted back. The briefing rooms on the flagship, maps of human territory showing their few dozen star systems, intelligence reports about their primitive technology. Everyone had been so confident. "We expected a simple operation," the commander said. "Humans had just developed faster than light travel. They had small ships, basic weapons, and no experience in galactic warfare. Our analysts compared them to the Gornathi when they first joined the galaxy. Peaceful integration was expected within months, but that's not what happened. No, that is not what happened at all." Zexithara's good hands trembled slightly. The mechanical ones remained perfectly steady, creating an odd contrast. "We made contact with a human exploration ship near what you call the Alpha Centauri system. Standard first contact protocols. We transmitted friendship messages, offered trade agreements, explained the benefits of joining the galactic community." "How did the humans respond?" "They listened politely. They asked many questions about our technology, our military capabilities, our population centers. We thought they were being cautious, which seemed wise for a new species." The commander paused, reaching for a glass of liquid with one mechanical hand. The movements were precise but somehow wrong, like watching a puppet pretend to be alive. 3 days later, our contact ship exploded. No warning, no demands, no declaration of war. It simply became debris in space. We lost 400 crew members. Kira's expression didn't change, but she made a note on her tablet. "The human government claimed that was an accident, didn't they? A malfunction in their reactor systems? That is what they said. We believed them at first. Accidents happen even during peaceful contact. We sent another ship, this time with better shielding and safety protocols. And it also exploded. Then the third one. Then the fourth." The studio was quiet except for the soft humming of the air recyclers. Zexithara's mechanical eye focused on Kira's face, studying her reaction. "The pattern became clear," the commander continued. "Each explosion happened exactly when our ships were in optimal position for humans to scan our technology. Each blast left specific debris patterns that would give humans maximum information about our ship construction. Each incident happened after our crews had answered detailed questions about Coalition military structure." "You're saying the explosions were deliberate? That humans were studying you?" "I am saying humans were already preparing for war before we knew war was possible. While we talked about friendship and trade, they were learning how to kill us." Kira set down her tablet. "Commander, that's a serious accusation. Human records from that time show genuine attempts at peaceful contact." The commander's laugh was that grinding metal sound again. Human records. Yes, I am sure they do. Tell me, human Kira, do your records mention the mining stations? Which mining stations? The ones that didn't exist until we scanned them. The ones that appeared overnight in asteroid fields throughout human space. The ones that were obviously weapon platforms disguised as industrial facilities. Zexthara's voice became quieter, more intense. While our diplomats discussed trade routes, humans were building gun emplacements. While our scientists offered technological exchange, humans were designing ships specifically to fight coalition vessels. They had war plans ready before we even knew we were enemies. The coalition responded with military force, though. The official timeline shows coalition ships entering human space 6 months after first contact. We had no choice. Our intelligence reports showed massive military buildup throughout human territory. Ships that were clearly warships, not exploration vessels. Weapons designed to exploit specific weaknesses in coalition shielding. Training programs that could only be for combat against our species. The commander shifted again, mechanical parts clicking. The High Command made the decision to neutralize the threat before humans could launch a surprise attack. It seemed logical. It seemed necessary. But you personally disagreed with that decision. Zexthara was quiet for a long time. The mechanical eye stopped moving and focused on the floor. I thought humans were like other species. I thought they would see reason when faced with superior force. I thought they would surrender when the choice was between submission and extinction. They didn't surrender. No. They did something else. Something no species in galactic history had ever done. What did they do? The commander looked directly at Kira, all 3 eyes focusing on her face. They smiled. When our fleet appeared over their first colony world, when we broadcast surrender demands, when we showed them exactly how outgunned and outnumbered they were, the human commander smiled. And then he said something that still gives me nightmares. He said, "Thank you for coming. We've been waiting for you." Zexthara's voice dropped to almost a whisper. That was when I realized we had made a terrible mistake. We thought we were starting a war, but humans had been planning one all along. The question was not whether they would fight us. The question was how long they had been preparing to do it. Kira leaned back in her chair. "Commander, before we continue, I need to ask you something directly. Why are you telling me this now? Why break 50 years of silence?" The old alien warrior was quiet for a moment. Then slowly, all 4 good arms moved to rest on the table. "Because the nightmares never stop, human Kira. Because no alien therapist understands what we saw your people do. Because I need someone to know the truth before I die." "What truth?" "That your official records are lies. That the war never really ended. And that every species in the galaxy lives in fear of the day humans decide they want something we have." The memory hit Zexthara like a physical blow. Even after 50 years, the commander could recall every detail of that first battle. The smell of burning circuits in the command center. The taste of fear in the air recyclers. The sound of alarms that wouldn't stop. "Tell me about the first engagement," Kira said softly. "What happened when coalition forces entered human space?" Zexthara's mechanical hands gripped the edge of the table. "We approached the outer colonies with standard battle formation. 3 dreadnoughts, 12 cruisers, 46 fighters. Against a human settlement of maybe 50,000 people with a handful of civilian ships." The commander's real eyes stared past Kira, seeing something that wasn't in the studio. The intelligence reports said humans had no military experience, no understanding of space combat, no proper weapons. We expected them to run or surrender immediately. But they didn't. They didn't run. They didn't surrender. They didn't even seem afraid. Zexthara's voice became hollow, distant. The human ships moved toward us. Not away from us, toward us. Our tactical officer said they were probably trying to surrender in person. Standard procedure for primitive species who don't understand communication protocols. The commander paused, reaching for the liquid again. The mechanical hand shook slightly this time. The first human ship was a cargo vessel, old, slow, barely armed. It came straight at our flagship. Our communications officer tried to contact them, tell them to stop. They responded immediately. What did they say? They were singing. Kira blinked. Singing? Some kind of human war song. Our translator couldn't handle all the words, but it was about fighting and dying and something called glory. The human pilot was laughing while he sang. Actually laughing. Zexthara's mechanical eye clicked rapidly, focusing and refocusing as if trying to process something impossible. The cargo ship accelerated, directly at us. Our weapons officer asked for permission to fire, but the captain said no. It was just one small ship. What could it do to a dreadnought? The studio lights reflected off the mechanical arms as they moved restlessly. The human ship hit our forward shield array. The explosion was significant, much more significant than it should have been. Our engineers later determined the humans had somehow overloaded their reactor core at the moment of impact. They deliberately crashed into your ship? Not just crashed, they turned their ship into a bomb. A very effective bomb. The explosion damaged our main shield generators and killed 17 crew members in the forward sections. Kira made notes on her tablet. Was this considered unusual behavior for the humans? The grinding metal laugh again. We thought it was desperation. A panicked response by primitives who didn't understand real warfare. Our analysts said it was proof that humans would exhaust themselves quickly in pointless suicide attacks. But there were more attacks? The second human ship approached while we were still dealing with damage from the first. This one was a passenger liner. Completely unarmed. It should have been harmless. Zexthara's voice grew quieter. The liner came in at an angle, moving much faster than its design specifications allowed. Our scans showed the engines were running far beyond safe limits. They should have exploded from the stress, did they? Eventually. But not until after the ship rammed our cruiser Valiant Dawn. The explosion broke the cruiser in half. The commander's real hands began to shake now, matching the mechanical ones. That was when we realized something was wrong. One suicide attack might be desperation. Two was a pattern. The humans weren't panicking. They were executing a plan. What kind of plan? They had studied our ships during the so-called peaceful contact period. They knew exactly where to hit us for maximum damage. They had modified their own vessels specifically for ramming attacks. The reactor overloads weren't accidental. They were weapons. Zexthara stood up suddenly, the mechanical legs whirring as they adjusted to support the old body. The commander walked to the studio window, looking out at the city beyond. The third attack was different. A small human fighter, barely big enough for one pilot. It came in fast, dodging our defensive fire with impossible precision. No computer could calculate those movements. Only a living pilot could react that quickly. The pilot survived the attack? No, that was the point. The fighter struck our ammunition storage bay and detonated the entire forward magazine. We lost 200 crew members in that explosion. The commander turned back to face Kira. But before the fighter hit, we managed to get a visual scan of the pilot, a young human female, maybe 25 standard years. She was wounded, bleeding from the head. Her life support was failing. And she was smiling. Even with death seconds away, even with her ship breaking apart around her, she was smiling. Zexthara returned to the chair, mechanical parts clicking with each movement. That image haunts me more than any other. The expression on her face wasn't fear or desperation or even determination. It was joy. Pure, genuine joy. The humans were enjoying the battle. They were enjoying the sacrifice. Each pilot who died took out a section of our fleet. To them, it was a fair trade. Better than fair. They thought they were winning. The commander's voice became almost inaudible. After the third attack, our captain ordered full withdrawal. We had lost one cruiser, suffered major damage to the flagship, and watched 3 humans die by choice. The tactical situation made no sense. But the humans didn't let you withdraw. They followed us. Every human ship in the system, civilian and military alike, came after us. Transport vessels, mining ships, even personal craft, all of them trying to ram our ships, all of them singing those war songs. Zexthara's mechanical eye focused on Kira's face. Do you understand what I am telling you, human Kira? Your people turned retreat into a running battle. They chased a fleet 10 times their size across an entire star system, sacrificing ship after ship just to do more damage. How many humans died in that first battle? All of them. Every human in that system. 8,000 people dead in 6 hours. And coalition losses. The commander was quiet for a long moment. 1 cruiser destroyed, 2 dreadnoughts heavily damaged. Over 400 crew members dead. Against civilian ships and converted cargo vessels. That's when Coalition Command realized humans were dangerous? No. That's when Coalition Command decided humans were insane. The battle reports made no sense to anyone who read them. No species fights that way. No species throws away lives for such small tactical advantages. Zexthara's real hands clenched into fists. But we learned something important that day. Humans don't calculate acceptable losses the same way other species do. To us, losing 8,000 people to kill 400 enemies is a disaster. To humans, it was a good start. What happened next? High Command ordered a larger fleet to human space. If humans wanted to fight, we would show them what real warfare looked like. We would demonstrate the futility of resistance against superior technology and numbers. The commander's laugh was bitter now. We still thought we could teach humans to be reasonable. We still believed they would surrender when faced with overwhelming force. They didn't. No, human Kira. They did something much worse. They learned. Zexthara looked directly at the camera for the first time since the interview began. Every human who died in that first battle had transmitted combat data to their commanders. They had recorded our ship movements, our weapon signatures, our tactical responses. They died to gather intelligence. Intelligence for what? For the trap they were building at Europa Station. The trap that would teach us what humans really were. Kira refilled her water glass while Zexthara sat in silence. The commander's mechanical eye had stopped moving completely, locked in a 1,000-yard stare that seemed to see through the studio walls into some terrible past. Commander, you mentioned Europa Station, but our records show the heaviest fighting took place at New Stalingrad. Can you tell me about that siege? The old warrior's entire body went rigid. Both real hands gripped the armrests of the chair so tightly that the metal creaked. The mechanical arms remained perfectly still but somehow conveyed more tension than the organic ones. New Stalingrad, Zexthara whispered. 8 months. 8 months of hell. The official coalition reports describe it as a mining colony of minimal strategic value. Why did the siege last so long? The commander's laugh was not mechanical grinding this time. It was something worse, something broken. Minimal strategic value. Yes, that's what our intelligence said. A small world with maybe 2 million humans. Basic mining operations. No military installations. No significant defenses. But those reports were wrong. Those reports were lies. Human lies. Everything about New Stalingrad was a lie designed to draw us in. Zexthara's voice became flat, emotionless, as if reciting a technical manual. We approached the system with overwhelming force. 5 dreadnoughts, 30 cruisers, 200 fighters, and a full ground assault division. Against a mining world that supposedly had no army. What did you find instead? We found a fortress, not built on the planet's surface, but built into the planet itself. Humans had spent months, maybe years, turning their entire world into a weapon. The commander stood again, pacing restlessly around the interview area. The mechanical legs made soft clicking sounds with each step. The first sign something was wrong came when we entered the system. Our long-range scans detected massive underground complexes. Our analysts said they were mining tunnels. We believed them because we wanted to believe them. The humans were preparing for siege warfare. Preparing doesn't cover what they did. They had studied every siege in galactic history. They knew exactly how coalition forces would approach a planetary assault. They had months to prepare for our arrival. Zexthara stopped pacing and faced Kira directly. Do you know what your people did to their own world, human Kira? Do you know what they sacrificed just to hurt us? Tell me. They poisoned their own water supplies. Not with random toxins, but with carefully designed biological agents. Harmless to humans, lethal to most alien species. Any coalition soldier who tried to drink local water would die within hours. The commander's mechanical hands clenched into fists. But that was just the beginning. They contaminated their food supplies with combat stimulants. Every human civilian became a potential berserker. Men and women who should have been running for shelter instead threw themselves at our soldiers with improvised weapons. The civilians fought back. Civilians? There were no civilians on New Stalingrad. Every human on that world was a combatant. Children as young as 10 years carried explosive devices. Elderly humans too weak to walk operated hidden gun emplacements. Pregnant women served as suicide bombers. Zexthara's voice cracked slightly. We tried to establish safe zones for non-combatants. The humans used those zones as staging areas for attacks. We offered medical aid to wounded civilians. They booby-trapped their own injured. Kira set down her tablet, her expression troubled. Commander, you're describing war crimes. War crimes? The grinding laugh returned. Human Kira, your people didn't commit war crimes. They rewrote the definition of war itself. The commander sat back down heavily. We had rules, you see. Conventions about protecting civilians, about proportional response, about acceptable weapons. Humans ignored every single rule. Can you give me specific examples? The children's toys. We found explosive devices disguised as dolls and game pieces. Our demolition experts couldn't disarm them because they were designed to look harmless. Coalition soldiers started dying when they tried to clear debris from schools and playgrounds. Zexathara's real eyes closed tightly. The psychological warfare was worse. Humans would hide speakers in the walls of abandoned buildings. All night long we heard recordings of human laughter mixed with screaming. Our sleep cycles were completely disrupted. Soldiers started hallucinating from exhaustion. How did Coalition Command respond to these tactics? They ordered increased firepower. If humans wanted to fight dirty, we would simply destroy everything from orbit. Level the cities, eliminate the population, turn the world into glass, but that didn't work either. It couldn't work. Humans had spent months moving their population underground. The tunnel systems were deeper and more complex than anything we had ever seen. They had built an entire civilization beneath the surface. The commander's mechanical eye began clicking rapidly again. Every time we destroyed a surface installation, humans would respond by attacking our ships from hidden launch sites. They had somehow moved space-capable weapons into those tunnels. Missiles would suddenly appear from what looked like empty ground. The siege dragged on for months. 8 months of constant fighting. 8 months of watching humans do things that no rational species would ever consider. They used their own dead as weapons, launching corpses filled with diseases designed to target alien biology. Zexathara's voice became hollow. The worst part was their attitude. After months of siege, after losing hundreds of thousands of people, after watching their world burn, they were still optimistic. Still confident they were winning. How could they think they were winning? Because every day they survived was a victory. Every coalition soldier who died was a celebration. Every ship they damaged was proof their strategy was working. The commander's hands began shaking again. We realized they weren't trying to win the siege. They were trying to make it so expensive that we would never want to fight humans again. Did it work? Oh yes, it worked perfectly. By month 6, coalition morale was completely broken. Our soldiers were refusing direct orders. 3 different ship captains requested transfers to other fronts. The ground assault division had to be rotated out twice. Zexathara looked directly at Kira. Do you want to know how the siege finally ended, human Kira? Yes, the humans won. Not by defeating us, but by leaving. One morning, our sensors detected massive movement in the tunnel systems. Tens of thousands of humans moving toward the northern continent. We thought it was a retreat, a final attempt to escape the siege. The commander's voice became very quiet. It was an evacuation, through a minefield. The humans had rigged their escape route with their own explosives. They knew that 30% of their population would die in the crossing. They considered it an acceptable loss. They chose to sacrifice their own people rather than surrender. They chose to deny us the satisfaction of victory. When our forces finally entered the abandoned cities, we found nothing but corpses and booby traps. The humans had destroyed everything useful and taken everyone valuable with them. Zexathara stood up one more time, walking to the window. The final message from the human commander is still classified, but I will tell you what it said. What did it say? Thank you for the training exercise. We learned a lot. See you soon. The studio was completely silent for a long moment. Training exercise? Kira finally asked. That's when we realized the truth about New Stalingrad. It wasn't a colony we were besieging. It was a school, a place where humans were learning how to fight us. The commander turned back to face the camera. Every tactic we used, every weakness we revealed, every mistake we made was recorded and transmitted to other human worlds. 2 million people died on New Stalingrad, but their deaths brought humanity the knowledge they needed to fight the rest of the war. And the humans who evacuated? They became teachers, veterans who traveled to other human worlds, training populations in siege warfare. By the time we realized what had happened, every human colony in the galaxy had become another New Stalingrad. Zexathara sat down heavily. That was when Coalition High Command finally understood what we were fighting. Not an army, not a government, not even a species. We were fighting an idea. The idea that dying to hurt your enemy is not just acceptable, but glorious. The interview had been going for 3 hours. Kira noticed that Zexathara's movements had become more erratic, the mechanical parts clicking and whirring with increasing frequency. The commander seemed to be fighting some internal battle, as if each memory brought physical pain. Commander, we've been talking about human defensive tactics, Kira said carefully. But the war lasted much longer than the 8-month siege. What changed? Zexathera's three eyes all focused on different points in the room, never quite meeting Kira's gaze. What changed was us. We stopped treating humans like a normal enemy and started treating them like a disease that had to be eliminated. Coalition strategy became more aggressive. Coalition strategy became desperate. High Command decided that conventional warfare wasn't working. If humans wanted to fight without rules, we would fight without rules too. The commander's real hands rubbed at temples where old scars were visible. We brought in the crystalline warships, ships designed to crack planets. We prepared biological weapons that would sterilize entire star systems. We were ready to commit genocide to end the war. But you didn't? We couldn't. Every time we prepared a final solution, humans would do something that changed the entire battlefield. They didn't just adapt to our tactics, they made our tactics irrelevant. Zexathera stood and began pacing again, the mechanical legs moving in perfect rhythm. The first innovation that terrified us was their use of the dead. Human corpses became weapons. You mentioned this during the new Stalingrad siege. That was just the beginning. After the siege, humans started launching their dead at our ships. Not just corpses, but corpses modified with diseases specifically designed to target alien biology. The commander stopped pacing, mechanical eye clicking rapidly. Our medical officers couldn't understand how humans had developed these biological weapons so quickly. It should have taken years of research to create diseases that affected multiple alien species. How did they do it? They used their own bodies as laboratories. Humans deliberately infected themselves with modified bacteria, then monitored how the diseases affected their own biology. They used their own suffering as research data. Kira's expression showed disgust and fascination in equal measure. They experimented on themselves? Worse than that. They volunteered for it. Our intelligence intercept showed humans competing for the chance to test biological weapons on their own bodies. They treated martyrdom like a privilege. Zexathera's voice became clinical, detached. The biological warfare escalated rapidly. Humans developed viruses that could survive in space vacuum, bacteria that would lie dormant for months before activating, diseases that targeted specific alien species while remaining harmless to humans. How did coalition forces respond? We developed countermeasures, better medical facilities, improved quarantine procedures, protective suits for boarding operations. We thought we had solved the biological threat. The commander's laugh was that familiar grinding sound. Then humans started using psychological warfare. They had studied our species, learned what frightened us, what made us lose control. What kind of psychological tactics? They would broadcast recordings during night cycles, sounds that mimicked our species' distress calls mixed with human laughter. Our sleep patterns were disrupted so badly that entire crews became non-functional. Zexathera's mechanical hands clenched and unclenched repeatedly. But the worst was when they captured our communications equipment. Humans somehow modified our own technology to broadcast directly into our ship's internal systems. What did they broadcast? Stories. Human stories about wars they had fought among themselves. Tales of battles where millions died for small pieces of territory. Descriptions of weapons they had used against their own species. The commander's voice dropped to a whisper. We learned that humans had developed weapons capable of destroying their entire planet. Not by accident, but deliberately. They had built these weapons and pointed them at themselves as a form of diplomatic pressure. Nuclear weapons. Worse than nuclear weapons. Humans had created devices that could crack continental plates, poison atmospheres for centuries, even alter the orbit of their homeworld, and they had been willing to use these weapons against themselves. Zexathera sat down again, all arms resting on the table. That was when we realized humans weren't just willing to die in battle. They were willing to destroy their own civilization rather than accept defeat. But surely coalition technology was still superior. It was, until humans started capturing our equipment and modifying it in ways that violated fundamental physics. The commander's mechanical eye focused on Kira's face. A Velinarian shield generator is designed to deflect energy weapons. The design principles are based on quantum field manipulation that took my species thousands of years to develop. Humans learned to use your technology. Humans learned to break our technology. They somehow modified captured shield generators into planet-cracking weapons. Equipment designed to protect became equipment designed to destroy. Zexathera's voice became filled with a mixture of admiration and horror. Our engineers studied the modifications. According to our understanding of physics, what humans had done was impossible. The energy requirements alone should have destroyed the devices. But they worked? They worked perfectly. Humans had somehow bypassed safety limitations that were built into the fundamental design. They had turned defensive technology into offensive weapons through pure trial and error. The commander stood and walked to the window again. That was when our scientists realized something terrifying about human innovation. They don't understand the science behind their modifications. They just keep trying things until something works. Experimentation without theory. Experimentation without regard for consequences. Humans would modify captured technology, even if the modifications had a 90% chance of killing everyone involved. The 10% chance of success was worth the risk. Zexithera turned back to face Kira. Do you know what human engineers called these modification sessions? What? Fun. They called them fun. The studio was quiet except for the soft clicking of mechanical parts. Kira made notes while the commander stood motionless, lost in memory. The psychological impact on coalition forces was devastating. Zexithera continued. We were fighting an enemy that treated physics as optional and death as entertainment. Our military doctrine had no response to opponents who considered mutual destruction a victory condition. Coalition morale collapsed. Worse than collapsed. Our soldiers started refusing to board captured human ships because the modifications were so unstable they might explode at any moment. Our engineers wouldn't work on human technology because it defied everything they understood about science. The commander's real hands began shaking again. But the final horror was when humans started volunteering. For suicide missions, you mentioned suicide attacks before, not attacks, missions, long-term operations where humans would deliberately place themselves in situations where survival was impossible, just to gather intelligence or cause specific types of damage. Zexithera's voice became hollow. We intercepted communications showing humans arguing about who would get to pilot ships into black holes to test gravitational weapons, fighting for the privilege of staying conscious during kamikaze runs to make final course corrections. They volunteered for these missions. They competed for them. Humans developed psychological profiles to determine who would be most effective in suicide operations. They had selection criteria for choosing the best candidates for certain death. The commander sat down heavily. That was when Coalition High Command finally understood what we were fighting. Not just a species willing to die, but a species that had weaponized their own willingness to die. How do you fight an enemy like that? You don't. You surrender. You negotiate. You find a way to make peace before they decide that mutual annihilation is an acceptable outcome. Zexithera looked directly at the camera. Because the most terrifying thing about humans isn't their technology or their tactics or even their willingness to sacrifice everything. It's that they genuinely believe that destroying both sides is better than letting the other side win. The interview had reached its 5th hour. Studio technicians had brought fresh water and checked equipment twice. Kira noticed that Zexithera seemed calmer now, as if finally speaking these truths had lifted some burden from the old warrior's shoulders. Commander, we've discussed the escalation of the war, but the official records state that coalition forces achieved victory after 18 months. How did the war actually end? Zexithera's 3 eyes all focused on Kira for the first time since the interview began. The war ended, human Kira, because we discovered humanity's final protocol. What was the final protocol? The plan your people had prepared if Earth itself faced invasion. The plan that made every species in the galaxy understand what humans truly were. The commander's mechanical hands moved restlessly across the table surface. Our intelligence services had finally infiltrated human communications networks. We thought we were learning their defensive strategies, their military capabilities, their population centers. But you found something else? We found a detailed plan for the systematic destruction of the Sol system. Not just Earth, but every planet, every space station, every human installation in your home system. Zexithera's voice became very quiet. The plan called for detonating your sun. Kira's expression showed genuine shock. That's impossible. No species has the technology to destroy a star. No species except humans. Your scientists had calculated that a series of precisely placed nuclear devices could trigger a cascade reaction in Sol's core. The explosion would sterilize every world within 30 light years. The commander leaned forward in the chair. But that wasn't the terrifying part. The terrifying part was the casualty projections. Human analysts had calculated that destroying Sol would kill approximately 400 billion sentient beings across dozens of star systems. And humans were willing to do this? Not just willing, eager. The communications we intercepted showed human leaders arguing about when to implement the final protocol. Some wanted to trigger it immediately if coalition forces entered the Sol system. Others wanted to wait until Earth itself was invaded. Zexathera's mechanical eye clicked rapidly, but the consensus was clear. If humanity faced extinction, they would take as much of the galaxy with them as possible. You're telling me humans were prepared to commit genocide on an interstellar scale? I'm telling you humans had already committed to it. The devices were built, placed, and armed. The final protocol wasn't a threat or a bluff. It was an active weapons system waiting for someone to push a button. The commander stood and walked to the window one final time. Coalition High Command received this intelligence during our preparation for the final assault on Earth. 3,000 ships, the largest military force in galactic history, ready to end the human threat permanently. What was the Coalition's response? Panic, absolute panic. Our military leaders realized that attacking Earth wouldn't just result in victory, it would result in the destruction of the galactic core. Zexathera's reflection in the window showed all three eyes focused on something beyond the horizon. The emergency session lasted for days. Military advisors, civilian leaders, scientists from every coalition species, all trying to find a solution to an impossible problem. How do you negotiate with someone holding a galactic doomsday device? Very carefully, very respectfully, and with the absolute understanding that they are not bluffing. The commander turned back to face Kira. The Coalition's first diplomatic contact with Earth was not a demand for surrender. It was a request for terms. Terms? Humanity's conditions for not implementing the final protocol. The price for allowing the rest of the galaxy to continue existing. Zexathera's voice took on an ironic tone. The human demands were surprisingly reasonable. Complete recognition of human sovereignty over their territory. Formal membership in the galactic community. Trade agreements. Diplomatic immunity. Standard requests from any emerging civilization. That seems too simple. It was too simple. Coalition negotiators kept waiting for the real demands. The tribute payments, the territorial concessions, the subjugation treaties. But humans didn't want any of those things. The commander sat down for the final time. What humans wanted was much more dangerous than conquest. They wanted respect. Respect? Recognition that humanity was not just another emerging species to be guided and controlled. Acknowledgement that human territory was sovereign and human decisions were final. Acceptance that humans would solve their own problems in their own way. Zexathera's laugh was different now. Less mechanical. More genuinely amused. The Coalition leadership found this terrifying. A species that would destroy half the galaxy for abstract concepts like dignity and independence was completely outside their understanding. But the Coalition agreed to these terms? The Coalition had no choice. Every analysis showed that humans would implement the final protocol if their demands were rejected. Every psychological profile indicated that humans genuinely preferred mutual destruction to submission. The commander's mechanical hands gestured toward the camera. The peace treaty was signed within weeks. Full recognition of human sovereignty, immediate cessation of hostilities, and formal apology for the unprovoked attack on human space. And the final protocol? Still active. Still armed, still ready for implementation at a moment's notice. Kira set down her tablet completely. Commander, you're saying that 50 years later, humans still have the ability to destroy the galactic core? I'm saying humans have spent 50 years improving that ability. Current intelligence estimates suggest they can now destroy multiple star systems simultaneously. The final protocol has become the final protocols. Zexathera's three eyes all focused on Kira's face. Do you want to know why no species has attacked humanity in 50 years, human Kira? It's not because we respect you. It's not because we fear your military. It's not even because we understand you. Why then? Because we finally realized what you are. A species that treats extinction as a tactical option. A species that considers universal annihilation preferable to personal defeat. A species that will burn down the galaxy before allowing anyone else to control it. The commander leaned back in the chair. All mechanical parts finally still. Every alien child learns about humans in school now. Not as heroes or villains, but as a force of nature, like a hurricane or a volcano. Something to be respected, avoided, and never provoked. And the Coalition's current relationship with humanity? Excellent. Humanity receives every consideration, every courtesy, every diplomatic privilege. Human requests are processed immediately. Human complaints are addressed with urgent priority. Human territory is absolutely respected. Zexthara's voice took on a sardonic tone. We have learned that keeping humans happy is much safer than trying to defeat them. But surely some species must resent this situation. Some do. But those species are reminded of what happened during the First Terran War. They are shown the casualty reports, the tactical analyses, the psychological evaluations. They are told about the final protocol. The commander looked directly at the camera one last time, and then they are asked a simple question. Is your pride worth more than the continued existence of galactic civilization? What do they usually answer? Nothing. They stop complaining about human privileges and start being grateful that humans are generally reasonable neighbors. Kira glanced at her notes one final time. Commander, before we conclude, I have to ask, why are you telling me this now? Why reveal classified information about the final protocol? Zexithara was quiet for a long moment. When the commander spoke again, the voice was weary, old, and somehow relieved. Because yesterday human diplomats approached 17 different star systems with offers of mutual defense treaties. Every single government accepted immediately. And that concerns you? It terrifies me. Because mutual defense treaties with humans don't just mean they will help protect you. They mean you become part of their final protocol calculations. The commander's mechanical eye focused on something beyond the camera. Humanity is expanding their definition of acceptable losses to include their allies. Any attack on treaty partners will now trigger the same response as an attack on Earth itself. The final protocol has become galactic policy? The final protocol has become galactic law. Humanity has successfully made their survival equivalent to universal survival. Any species that threatens human interests now threatens the continued existence of all galactic civilization. Zexthara stood up slowly, mechanical parts whirring with the effort. This interview will be broadcast across the galaxy as my final service to galactic peace. A reminder to any species considering conflict with humanity about what they are truly risking. And what are they risking? Everything. They are risking everything. The commander walked toward the studio exit, then paused and looked back at Kira one final time. The most terrifying thing about humans, young journalist, is not that they are willing to die for their beliefs. It is that they are willing to take the entire universe with them. The studio lights dimmed as Zexithara disappeared through the doorway, mechanical legs clicking against the floor with each step. In the sudden silence, Kira realized that the interview had not just been a revelation about the past. It had been a warning about the future. The distress signal cut through the darkness of space like a scream. Commander Velthari pressed her thin, trembling fingers against the communication console of the ship Harmony's Grace. Her wings, usually bright blue and shining, had turned pale with fear. The ship was dying. She could feel it in every broken hum of the engines, every flicker of the lights above her head. Please, she spoke into the transmitter, her voice breaking. This is Commander Velthari of the Galactic Council peacekeeping vessel Harmony's Grace. We are under attack. Our hull is breached. Life support failing. We have 200 souls aboard, families, children. Please, anyone help us. The Korthak raiders had come out of nowhere. 36 ships painted black like the void itself, armed with weapons that tore through shields like paper. The Harmony's Grace wasn't a warship. It was a transport vessel, carrying diplomats, traders, and refugees from 12 different species to the Peace Summit on Kepler Station. Velthari watched through the cracked viewport as another plasma blast struck their ship. The whole vessel shook. Somewhere behind her, children cried. A Telvanni mother sang softly to her twins, trying to keep them calm. An old Altarian merchant prayed in his ancient language. Commander, her second officer, a young Zalathi named Crix, floated up beside her. His left arm hung useless at his side, broken when the first blast had thrown him against the wall. The escape pods on Deck 7 are gone. Destroyed. We have maybe 3 working pods left, enough for 20 people at most. 20 people out of 200. Velthari felt her heart sink. Both of them beat frantically in her chest, a rhythm of despair. She looked around the bridge. Her crew, what remained of them, worked desperately at dying stations. They were good people. They didn't deserve this. The main screen flickered to life. A Korthak face appeared, scarred and brutal. Warlord Grax, she recognized him from the security briefings. His species looked like massive bears crossed with crocodiles, all teeth and claws and muscle. His black eyes held no mercy. Little bird, Grax said, his voice like grinding stone. Your ship is broken. Your council fleets are 5 days away. Surrender. We will take you as slaves. Some of you will live. Fight, and we will skin you all and use your bones for trophies. Velthari's wings shook, but she stood straighter. The Galactic Council does not negotiate with slavers. You are in violation of 17 treaties. Leave now or face justice, Grax laughed. The sound made everyone on the bridge flinch. Justice? From who, little bird? Your escort ships are space dust. You are alone. But I am feeling generous. You have 10 minutes to decide. Slavery or death. The screen went dark. Silence filled the bridge. Velthari could hear her own breathing, quick and shallow. She thought of the children in the cargo bay, huddled with their parents. She thought of the teenage Altarian girl who had shown her drawings of her homeworld just yesterday. She thought of all the lives in her care. Commander, the communications officer suddenly spoke up. His voice sounded strange, confused. We're receiving a response to our distress call. From who? Hope flared in Velthari's chest. Is it the Council fleet? Did they send a fast response unit? No, Commander. It's humans. The bridge went very still. Everyone knew about humans. They were the newest members of the Galactic Council, barely 5 years since first contact. They came from a world classified as a death world, a planet so hostile that no other Council species could survive there without environmental suits, high gravity that would crush most beings, weather that could kill in minutes, predators that hunted in packs with terrifying intelligence. But the humans who had joined the Council seemed peaceful enough. They traded fairly. They shared their music and art. They laughed easily and seemed eager to make friends. Many species had started to think the stories of their homeworld were exaggerated. Humans? Velthari repeated. How many ships? 1 battle group, Commander. The UNS Prometheus and 5 escort vessels. They're 40 minutes away at maximum burn. 40 minutes. They had 10 before Grax started killing them. Can we hold for 40 minutes? She asked her tactical officer. The Silvani shook his head, his silver skin dull with exhaustion. Our shields are at 8%. Hull integrity failing. We have no weapons. We cannot run. Commander, we will not last 40 minutes. Velthari closed her eyes. When she opened them, she turned to the communications officer. Send this message to the human fleet. Tell them we are grateful for their response, but they should not endanger themselves. The Korthak outnumber them 6-1. Tell them to stand back and bear witness. Record what happens here so the Council will know. The communications officer nodded and began transmitting. A moment later, he frowned. Commander, they're responding. The main screen lit up again. A human face appeared. Female, with dark hair pulled back severely and eyes like chips of black stone. The nameplate read Captain Sarah Chen, commanding officer of the UNS Prometheus. Commander Velthari, the human said. Her voice was calm, steady, like discussing the weather. This is Captain Chen. We have received your situation report. Hold your position. Do not surrender. We are coming. Captain Chen, Velthari said quickly. You don't understand. There are 36 Korthak vessels. You have 6 ships. Even if your weapons are superior, the odds are impossible. Please do not throw away your lives for us. Captain Chen's expression didn't change. Commander, you have children aboard your vessel? Yes, but how many? Velthari's throat felt tight. 43. The youngest is barely 2 cycles old. Understood. We are accelerating to emergency speed. ETA 37 minutes. Captain Rodriguez, Captain Okonkwo, and Captain Nakamura are moving to flanking positions. Commander Velthari, in exactly 10 minutes I need you to broadcast this message on all frequencies. She touched something off screen, and words appeared on Velthari's console. The Zalathi commander read them and felt her blood chill. Captain, this message. This is a death threat. This violates every rule of engagement the Council has established. For the first time, Captain Chen smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. Commander, those rules assume everyone follows them. The Korthak threatened children. They destroyed medical vessels. They take slaves. The rules no longer apply. But you're outnumbered 6-1. We know. The human leaned forward slightly. Commander, I need you to trust me. Your people think we're weak because we choose to be kind, because we laugh and trade and make art. They think our warnings about our homeworld are stories, myths. They're about to learn otherwise. The human's eyes seemed to bore through the screen. You have children to protect, so do we. Every child in the galaxy becomes our responsibility when we see them in danger. It's how we survived our death world. We protected our young with absolute ferocity. Now broadcast that message in exactly 10 minutes. Not before, not after. Can you do that? Belthari found herself nodding before she realized it. Something in the human's voice, steady as bedrock, made her believe. Yes, Captain. 10 minutes. Good. And Commander? When we arrive, things are going to happen very fast. Some of what you see might be disturbing. Keep your people away from the viewports. Focus on keeping them calm. We'll handle the rest. The screen went dark. Belthari looked at her chronometer. 10 minutes. She looked at the message again. It was simple, direct, and absolutely terrifying in its implications. Around her, her crew exchanged glances. Nobody said what they were all thinking. The humans were planning something. Something the peaceful Galactic Council would never approve of. Something that the rules of civilized warfare forbade. But as another blast shook the ship, as she heard more children crying in the distance, Belthari found she didn't care about the rules anymore. She just wanted her people to live. The minutes crawled by. Each second felt like an hour. The Korthak ships moved closer, weapons charging for what would probably be the killing blow. At exactly 10 minutes, Belthari broadcast the message Captain Chen had sent. Korthak Fleet. This is the UNS Prometheus. You have fired upon civilians. You have threatened children. You have violated the Geneva Convention, the Stellar Accords, and every law of civilized warfare. You have one chance. Leave now, or we will show you why humanity survived its death world. There will be no second warning. There will be no mercy. Choose. Warlord Grax listened to the message and laughed so hard that his second-in-command stepped back nervously. The bridge of his flagship, the Blood Dancer, echoed with his amusement. Around him, his crew of hardened raiders joined in the laughter. The sound was like grinding metal mixed with breaking glass. Humans, Grax said, wiping tears from his black eyes. The soft little traitors dare to threaten us. Send word to all ships. When they arrive, destroy them slowly. I want to hear them beg like the cowards they are. His tactical officer, a scarred Korthak named Thresh, studied his scanner. Warlord, the humans are coming in fast. Very fast. They're burning at... This can't be right. What? Grax moved to look at the screen. They're pulling 15 Gs of acceleration. No council species can survive more than 6. Even we can only handle 9 for short periods. Grax frowned. Your scanner is broken. Fix it. It's not broken, Warlord. All ships confirm the same readings. And they're not slowing down. At this speed, they'll crash right through our formation. Then they're committing suicide, Grax decided. Trying to die with honor rather than be taken as slaves. Pathetic. Send 12 ships to intercept them. The rest continue pressuring the transport. I want those civilians ready to load when we're done with the humans. 12 Korthak ships peeled away from the main fleet. Each one was a predator, built for raiding and slavery. Their captains were veterans of 100 attacks on defenseless vessels. They knew how to break spirits, how to make people surrender, how to turn brave words into whimpers of submission. They formed an attack wall and waited for the humans to slow down, to try some clever maneuver, to do something that made sense. The humans didn't slow down. Captain Chen stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, her hands clasped behind her back. The acceleration that would have turned most aliens into paste barely made her lean back slightly. Around her, her crew worked with calm efficiency. No excitement, no fear, just the steady professionalism of people doing a job they'd trained for their entire lives. Captain, her weapons officer reported, boarding torpedoes are loaded with Marines. Colonel Martinez reports his teams are ready. Tell the Colonel he has permission to go weapons-free the moment they breach. No restrictions. No restrictions, Her first officer, Commander David Park, moved up beside her. He spoke quietly. The Council won't like this, Captain. We're about to break every rule they have about proportional response. Chen didn't look away from the view screen. The Council isn't here, David. Those children on that transport are. I can live with the Council's disapproval. I can't live with letting slavers take kids. Understood, ma'am. For what it's worth, the crew's behind you 100%. I know they are. That's why I love these crazy bastards. She raised her voice. All hands prepare for combat. Remember your training. Remember your humanity. And remember, we're the only thing standing between those civilians and slavery. Let's show these slavers why humans are the apex predators of our world. A chorus of acknowledgments came back. Chen smiled grimly. The Korthak interceptor fleet opened fire at maximum range. Plasma beams and particle weapons lit up space in a deadly light show. The human ships didn't dodge. They flew straight through the barrage, shields flaring but holding. "Warlord," Thresh said, his voice tight with something that might have been the beginning of fear. "Their shields are holding. Direct hits and their shields are holding. Increase fire. All weapons." The space between the two forces became a river of energy and death. The Korthak poured everything they had into stopping the human advance. Ships that should have been vaporized kept coming, and they were still accelerating. Then the humans fired back, but they didn't fire normal weapons. Instead, dozens of torpedoes launched from each human ship. But these torpedoes didn't aim for the Korthak shields. They punched through them like they weren't there, slamming into the hulls and burrowing inside. "What are those things?" Krax roared. He got his answer seconds later. The torpedoes weren't just weapons. They were boarding craft. Each one carried a squad of human Marines in power armor that turned them into walking tanks. Marines who had trained in Earth gravity, which meant they were 3 times stronger than most species even without the armor. Marines who had grown up on a world where everything from the weather to the wildlife tried to kill them daily. Marines who had just watched slavers threaten children. On the Korthak raider ship, Bone Naur, Captain Vrex was organizing rappel teams when the first boarding torpedo punched through his bridge. The explosion killed half his bridge crew instantly. Through the smoke and flame came nightmares in black armor. The humans moved faster than should have been possible. They didn't use stun weapons or capture devices. They used kinetic weapons that punched through Korthak armor like tissue paper. They used monomolecular blades that cut through deck plating. They used their armored fists when enemies got too close. Vrex, veteran of 50 raids, killer of hundreds, lasted exactly 4 seconds. The Marine who killed him didn't even slow down. She moved to the next target, weapon rising with mechanical precision. No hesitation, no mercy, exactly as promised. Similar scenes played out on every Korthak ship the humans boarded. The raiders, used to fighting terrified civilians and lightly armed traders, found themselves facing something from their worst nightmares. Humans didn't just fight. They hunted. They moved in coordinated pack formations, covering each other, herding enemies into kill zones. One Korthak warrior, bigger than the rest, managed to grab a human Marine, lifting him off the ground. He squeezed with all his might, strength that could crush stone. The human's armor cracked but held. The Marine didn't scream or beg. He simply drew his sidearm and put 3 rounds through the Korthak's skull at point-blank range. On the Blood Dancer, Grax watched the tactical display in growing horror. The dots representing his interceptor fleet were going dark one by one. Not damaged, not retreating, just gone, eliminated. "How?" he whispered. Then louder, "How are they doing this?" "They're just humans, soft little traders who make art and music." His science officer, an elderly Korthak who had seen many battles, spoke carefully. "Warlord, I think we misunderstood. They don't make art because they're soft. They make art because they've evolved past the need to be violent all the time. But the violence, it's still there, under the surface, waiting. Pull those ships back. All ships converge on the humans. Overwhelm them with numbers." But it was too late for the interceptor fleet. In less than 10 minutes, 12 Korthak ships had been turned into floating tombs. The human Marines didn't take prisoners. They didn't accept surrenders. They cleared each ship room by room, deck by deck, with brutal efficiency. Captain Chen watched the tactical display with cold satisfaction. Phase 1 complete. All boarding teams evacuate to retrieval points. Phase 2 begins in 60 seconds. The remaining 24 Korthak ships were racing to engage, but they were scattered, their formation broken by the need to threaten the civilian transport. The human fleet, still in perfect formation, still accelerating at impossible speeds, adjusted course slightly. "They're heading straight for us," Thresh reported unnecessarily. Everyone could see it. Grax felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Fear. Real, bone-deep fear. "All ships, all weapons, concentrate fire on the lead human vessel." "Everything we have!" Space lit up again as 24 ships focused their fire on the Prometheus. The human ship's shields flared, buckled, started to fail. Grax felt hope rising. Then the Prometheus did something impossible. It rolled, presenting a fresh shield facing while the damaged section recharged. Then it rolled again and again, distributing the damage across all shield facings while maintaining its collision course. It was a maneuver that should have torn the ship apart from the stress. The humans inside should have been liquefied by the G-forces. But the ship held together, and the humans kept coming. Impact in 30 seconds. Thresh screamed, "Evasive maneuvers!" All ships scatter. The Korthak fleet broke formation, ships peeling away in all directions. It was exactly what the humans wanted. As the raiders scattered, the human ships split up, each one chasing multiple targets. No longer a single target for concentrated fire. They became 6 deadly predators pursuing scattered prey. The Prometheus adjusted course slightly and scraped past the Blood Dancer so close that the shields of both ships merged for a moment in a blinding flash. In that instant, something transferred between the ships. Krax had just enough time to wonder what before his ships. Artificial gravity reversed at 20 times normal strength. Every Korthak on the Blood Dancer was instantly slammed into the ceiling with bone-crushing force. Then the gravity reversed again, slamming them into the floor. Then the walls. The humans had hacked their gravity systems and turned their own ship into a weapon against them. Commander Velthari pressed herself against the viewport of the Harmony's Grace, unable to look away from the battle raging outside. Her whole body shook, but not from fear anymore. It was awe, terrible and complete, at what she was witnessing. The humans weren't fighting. They were hunting. And they were very, very good at it. She watched as a human destroyer, a ship half the size of its Korthak opponent, performed a maneuver that should have been physically impossible. It flipped end over end while maintaining forward velocity, its weapons firing in perfect sequence to create a sphere of death around itself. The Korthak cruiser trying to flank it flew straight into the kill zone and came apart like a toy thrown against rocks. "Commander," Krix floated beside her, his voice barely a whisper. "The human medical ship is requesting permission to dock. They want to evacuate our wounded." Velthari turned to stare at him. "They want to dock? In the middle of this battle?" "Yes, Commander. They say they can have everyone off in 15 minutes. She looked back outside. The human medical frigate, painted white with red crosses, was indeed approaching. 2 Korthak raiders moved to intercept it, seeing an easy target. The medical ship didn't change course, didn't slow down. At the last second, 2 human fighters appeared from nowhere, moving so fast they were just blurs. The Korthak raiders exploded. The fighters vanished again into the chaos. The medical ship continued its approach as if nothing had happened. "Grant them permission," Velthari said softly. "And Krix, tell our people to stay calm. The humans are here to help." The docking was smooth despite the battle raging around them. The airlock opened and humans poured in. But these weren't the Marines Velthari had expected. They wore medical uniforms, carried stretchers and medical equipment. They moved with the same efficiency as their military counterparts. But their purpose was preservation, not destruction. A young human woman, her medical uniform marked with the rank of lieutenant, approached Velthari. She couldn't have been more than 25 Earth years old. Just a child by Galactic Council standards. "Commander Velthari, I'm Lieutenant Emily Foster, Chief Medical Officer. We need to evacuate your wounded immediately. Can your people walk?" "Some can, but the children will carry them." The humans said it like it was nothing. Like carrying alien children 3 times their size was perfectly normal. "My team has experience with multi-species evacuation. Please tell your people we're here to help. We won't hurt them." Velthari watched in amazement as the human medical team worked. A male medic, even younger than the lieutenant, picked up 3 Zalathi children at once, 1 in each arm and 1 on his back. Each child weighed 40 kilograms. The human didn't even look strained. He was talking to them softly, his voice calm and soothing despite the chaos outside. "It's okay, little ones. We're going to a safe place. My ship has a play area. Do you like games? We have games from 50 different worlds." An elderly Altarian, too weak to walk from oxygen deprivation, was gently lifted by a human nurse who couldn't have weighed more than 60 kilograms herself. She carried the elder like he weighed nothing, while simultaneously monitoring his vital signs on a display mounted to her wrist. But what struck Velthari most was the contrast. Outside, she could see human Marines tearing through Korthak ships with ruthless efficiency. Inside, human medics were treating injured raiders who had been caught in decompression incidents with the same care they showed the civilians. "Why?" she asked Lieutenant Foster. "Why save them too? They're the enemy." Foster looked at her with eyes that seemed far too old for her face. "Once they're wounded and helpless, they're not enemies anymore. They're patients. That's what separates us from them, Commander. We can be monsters when we need to be, but we choose when to stop." The explosion rocked the ship. Through the viewport, Velthari saw a Korthak destroyer firing on them, trying to kill the civilians rather than let them be rescued. The human medical ship's escort, A frigate named the UNS Mercy's Fist interposed itself between the transport and the destroyer. The frigate took the hit meant for them, its shields flaring and dying. What happened next made everyone, human and alien alike, stop and stare. The frigate accelerated directly at the destroyer. Not to ram it, but to get close, point-blank range. The destroyer tried to back away, but the human ship was faster, more agile. It matched every evasive maneuver, staying so close their shields overlapped. Then the frigate fired everything it had at once. Not at the destroyer's shields or weapons, but at its engines. Surgical strikes that crippled but didn't destroy. The destroyer began to drift, helpless. The frigate could have finished it off easily. Instead, it turned back to guard the medical evacuation, leaving the destroyer crew alive but impotent. 12 minutes, Lieutenant Foster announced. Almost done. Commander, you need to come too. I can't leave my ship. Your ship is dying, Commander. Hull integrity is at 2%. You've got maybe 5 minutes before catastrophic failure. Your duty to your crew is fulfilled. Let us save you too. Velthari looked around the bridge of the Harmony's Grace. Her home for 3 years. The place where she'd celebrated her bonding ceremony over video link. The place where she'd learned she was going to be an aunt. So many memories, but Foster was right. The ship was dead. Only pride kept her here. Very well, she said quietly. As they evacuated, Velthari got her first real look at human technology. The medical ship's interior was impossibly advanced. Healing beds that could treat a dozen species at once, surgical suites that could perform operations in the middle of a battle without a single tremor affecting the doctor's hands, and everywhere humans working with calm precision. But it was the refugees who really caught her attention. The children who had been terrified moments ago were now laughing, playing with holographic toys the humans had produced from nowhere. The wounded were being treated with technology that seemed like magic. A Telvanni trader who had lost his leg to shrapnel watched in awe as human doctors prepared to attach a temporary prosthetic that would let him walk immediately. Your medical technology, Velthari said to Foster, it's beyond anything the Council has. Foster gave a sad smile. We've had a lot of practice, Commander. Our world tries to kill us every day. We've gotten very good at putting people back together, and now we use that knowledge to help others. Through a viewport, Velthari saw the battle continuing. The Korthak fleet was in full retreat now, but the humans weren't letting them go. They pursued relentlessly, disabling ship after ship, not destroying them all, she noticed, just removing their ability to hurt anyone else. Warlord Grax's flagship tried to jump to hyperspace. The humans had somehow damaged their jump drive. It tried to send a distress signal to other raider fleets. The humans jammed it. It tried to ram the Prometheus in a last desperate attack. Captain Chen's ship danced aside at the last second, then fired a single precise shot that cracked the Blood Dancer's hull open like an egg. Velthari saw escape pods launching from the Korthak ships. She expected the humans to destroy them. Instead, they ignored them. The message was clear. Surrender and live. Fight and die. No negotiation, no middle ground. 15 of their ships destroyed, a human ensign reported to Foster. 12 disabled. 9 fled successfully. The Prometheus is asking if we need assistance. Tell them we're clear, Foster replied. All civilians evacuated safely. Velthari couldn't believe it. 30 minutes. Your fleet defeated 36 Korthak raiders in 30 minutes. 32 minutes and 18 seconds, Foster corrected. But yes, how? How is this possible? The Korthak are the terror of this sector. They've raided with impunity for decades. Foster was quiet for a moment, watching as medics worked on an injured Zalathi child. When she spoke, her voice was soft. Commander, have you ever heard of persistence hunting? No. It's how ancient humans hunted before we had advanced weapons. We couldn't outfight most predators, couldn't outrun prey, but we could outlast them. We'd chase them walking, jogging for hours or days, never stopping, never resting. Eventually, they'd collapse from exhaustion and we'd catch them. She turned to look at Velthari. That mentality never left us. When we decide something needs to be done, we don't stop. Ever, those raiders threatened children. In that moment, their fate was sealed. Not because we're strong or fast or tough, though we are all those things, but because once we start protecting something, we simply will not stop until the threat is eliminated. An alarm sounded. Through the viewport, they could see the Harmony's Grace finally succumbing to its damage. The beautiful ship came apart slowly, gracefully like a flower losing its petals to the wind. Velthari felt tears on her cheeks. I'm sorry about your ship, Foster said gently. It's just metal and composite, Velthari replied, though her heart's hurt. My people are alive. That's what matters. She watched as the human fleet regrouped. Some ships showed damage, scorch marks, and hull breaches, but they were all still functional, still dangerous. They began collecting escape pods, even the Korthak ones. The humans would take them to the nearest council station, she realized. The raiders would face justice, but they would live. Most of them, anyway. The ones who had surrendered. The ones who had fought to the end were floating debris now, their ships torn apart with surgical precision. The human medical ship felt strange to Velthari. Too quiet after the chaos of battle, too calm. The refugees from the Harmony's Grace huddled together in the large medical bay, some sleeping, others staring at nothing with the blank look of those who had seen too much. The human crew moved among them like ghosts, quiet and efficient, bringing food, water, blankets, comfort. Velthari stood by a viewport, watching as the human fleet collected the last of the escape pods. Her second officer, Crick, stood beside her, his broken arm now healed by human medical technology that had repaired the bone in minutes. Commander, he said softly, the children are asking questions. About the humans. About what they saw. She turned to look at the main medical bay. A group of young ones from various species clustered around a human marine, who had removed his helmet. The marine, a massive human with scars across his dark skin, was sitting on the floor to be at their eye level. He was showing them his helmet, letting them touch it, answering their questions with infinite patience. But Velthari could see the fear in the children's eyes. They had seen this human, and others like him, tear through Korthak raiders like paper. They had seen beings they thought were friendly traders turn into something from nightmares. A young Altarian, barely 8 cycles old, approached the marine nervously. His name was Kelix, Velthari remembered. His parents had died in the first attack, and he'd been alone since then. Mr. Human, Kelix said, his small voice shaking. Are you going to hurt us? The marine, whose name tag read Rodriguez, set down his helmet carefully. His voice when he spoke was gentler than Velthari would have thought possible from someone so large. No, little one. Never. Do you know why? Kelix shook his head. Because you're not a threat. You're not trying to hurt anyone. You're just a kid who needs help. And helping kids is what we do. But you killed those others. The bad ones. You didn't show them any mercy. Rodriguez nodded slowly. That's true. We didn't. Do you want to know why? The children all leaned in, even the ones who had been pretending not to listen. On our world, Earth, we have creatures called wolves. Do you know what wolves are? The children shook their heads. They're predators, hunters. They live in groups called packs, and they protect each other. They're dangerous to their enemies, but gentle with their pups, their babies. Humans learned from wolves. We learned that to protect the pack, especially the young, sometimes you have to be fierce. Sometimes you have to be scarier than the things trying to hurt your family. He picked up his helmet, showing them the scratch marks on it from where a Korthak had tried to claw through it. Those raiders, they wanted to hurt you, to take you from your families, to make you slaves. We couldn't let that happen. So we became the wolves. We became the monsters that monsters fear, not because we like it, but because it was the only way to keep you safe. But what if you don't stop? Another child asked. What if you keep being monsters? Rodriguez smiled, and it was a real smile, warm and kind. That's a good question. That's why we have rules. That's why we have each other. When the fight is over, we remind each other to be human again, to be kind, to build instead of destroy. Watch. He pulled something from his pocket, a small device that projected a hologram. Music started playing, soft and beautiful. The hologram showed flowers blooming, birds flying, children playing on a green world under a blue sky. This is Earth, our home. It's dangerous, yes, but it's also beautiful. We fight to protect beauty. We destroy those who would destroy innocence. But when the fighting is done, we go home and tend our gardens, paint our pictures, sing our songs. The monster is something we become when needed, not something we are. Kelix moved closer, fascination overcoming fear. Your world made you strong. It did. But do you know what made us stronger? What? Each other. Learning to work together. Learning that our differences made us better, not weaker. Just like all of you. From different worlds, different species, but all part of the same big family now. Velthari watched as the Marine continued talking to the children, showing them pictures of Earth, telling them stories. Slowly the fear in their eyes faded. Some even laughed when he told them about house cats, tiny predators that humans kept as pets. Lieutenant Foster appeared beside her. "Commander, Captain Chen would like to speak with you. She's on the bridge." Velthari followed Foster through the ship. The corridors were filled with refugees, but also with human crew members helping them. She saw a human engineer teaching a group of Telvanni teenagers how the ship's gravity systems worked. A human cook was learning recipes from an elderly Altarian chef. Everywhere, the two groups were mingling, fear slowly being replaced by curiosity. The bridge was smaller than she expected, efficient and practical. Captain Chen stood at the center, reviewing reports on multiple screens. She turned as Velthari entered. "Commander, I'm glad you're safe. How are your people?" "Alive, thanks to you. But Captain, I must ask, what you did out there, the brutality, the lack of mercy, this isn't what the Council knows of humanity." Chen nodded slowly. "It's not what we want to be known for. We came to the stars hoping to leave that part of us behind. To be explorers, traders, friends. But the galaxy isn't as peaceful as we hoped. There are those who prey on the weak, who see kindness as weakness." She gestured to a screen showing the debris field that had been the Korthak fleet. "We made a choice when we joined the Council. We would be what the galaxy needed us to be, friends to those who want peace, protectors to those who need help, and yes, nightmares to those who would harm the innocent. But the Council will be horrified. The rules of engagement were written by species who evolved on paradise worlds," Chen interrupted. "Worlds where cooperation was always the best strategy, where violence was rare and controlled. They don't understand that some predators don't respond to anything but greater strength." She turned to face Velthari fully. "Commander, let me ask you something. If we had followed the rules, if we had negotiated, if we had shown proportional response, what would have happened?" Velthari's wings drooped. "We would be slaves now. Or dead?" "Exactly. Sometimes, Commander, compassion means making the hard choice. It means becoming what you hate to prevent something worse. Every human soldier knows this. We train for it. We prepare for it. And when it's necessary, we do it without hesitation. And afterward, how do you live with it?" Chen's expression softened slightly. "We remember why we did it. We look at those kids in our medical bay, safe and alive, and we know it was worth it. And we work every day to build a galaxy where such choices aren't necessary." A communication officer spoke up. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Council. They want a full report." "I'll handle it," Chen said. She turned back to Velthari. "Commander, what will you tell them?" Velthari thought about the children playing with Lieutenant Rodriguez, about the medical team that saved enemies as readily as friends, about the fleet that had come charging to their rescue without hesitation. "I'll tell them the truth. That humanity saved us. That you showed the raiders exactly the mercy they deserved. None. And that maybe, just maybe, the galaxy needs a species that can be monsters when monsters appear." Chen nodded. "Thank you, Commander." As Velthari left the bridge, she passed more refugees. A Korthak raider, one of the few survivors, was being treated in a secured medical area. His legs were gone, lost when his ship decompressed. Human doctors were fitting him with prosthetics, treating him with the same care they showed everyone else. He looked up at her with confused eyes. "They're healing me," he said, his voice rough. "I tried to kill them and they're healing me." "Yes," Velthari said simply. "They are. Why?" She thought about Rodriguez's words. "Because the fight is over. You're not a threat anymore, and they choose to be human again." The raider looked at the human doctor adjusting his prosthetic. The doctor, a middle-aged woman with gray in her hair, patted his shoulder gently. "You'll walk again in a few days," she said. "After that, you'll be turned over to Council authorities. What happens next is up to them and you, but you'll face justice whole and walking. That's more mercy than you showed your victims." The raider said nothing, but Velthari saw something in his eyes she'd never expected to see in a Korthak. Shame. And perhaps, just perhaps, the beginning of understanding. She found Crix with the other refugees. He was staring out a viewport at the human fleet. "They're escorting us all the way to Kepler Station," he said. "Captain Chen says they won't leave until everyone is safe." "Of course they won't," Velthari replied. "It's what they do. They protect the pack. Commander, do you think the Council will understand what the humans did?" Velthari watched as a human fighter flew past, waggling its wings at the children who had pressed themselves against the viewport to watch. Such a small gesture, turning a machine of war into a moment of joy for traumatized youngsters. "I don't know, Crix, but I understand." And I think that's what matters. The humans showed the galaxy something today. They showed that kindness and strength aren't opposites. They're two sides of the same truth. You protect what you love with everything you have. And sometimes that means becoming something terrible. She thought about the message that would spread across the galaxy. The story of the humans who answered a distress call who came without hesitation. The Galactic Council chamber on Kepler Station was a massive sphere, designed so that no species sat above or below another. Representatives from 47 civilizations filled the viewing platforms, their forms as varied as the worlds they came from. At the center, a holographic display showed the battle footage from the Harmony's Grace incident, as it was now being called. The chamber was completely silent as they watched humans tear through the Korthak fleet. Many representatives had to look away when the boarding footage played, showing human Marines eliminating raiders with brutal efficiency. The silence stretched long after the recording ended. Finally, Ambassador Thekval of the Corvanian Empire spoke. His species looked like giant mantises made of crystal, and his voice rang like bells. This is barbarism. The humans violated 17 separate council protocols. They showed no quarter, took no prisoners during combat, and used excessive force. They must be censured. Murmurs of agreement rippled through some sections of the chamber. Others remained silent, uncertain. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the center platform. She was Captain Chen's older sister, though few knew that. Her face was calm, showing nothing of her thoughts as she listened to the growing chorus of criticism. "They're monsters," someone whispered, loud enough to be heard. "Deathworlders," another agreed. Sarah Chen raised her hand for silence. When she spoke, her voice carried to every corner of the chamber. "Yes," she said simply, "we are Deathworlders." The chamber went silent again, shocked by the admission. "We come from a world that tried to kill us every single day. Gravity that would crush most of you. Weather that can destroy entire cities. Diseases that evolve faster than we can cure them. Predators that hunt in packs using tools and tactics. Even our plants can be deadly. We are the product of millions of years of evolution on a world that demanded we become strong or die." She paused, looking around the chamber. "We are Deathworlders. We accept this label. We embrace it, because it means we survived what would have killed anyone else. It means we learned to work together against impossible odds. It means we became strong enough to protect those who cannot protect themselves." Ambassador Thekval's crystalline form chimed with indignation. "You speak of protection, but we saw slaughter. Your people killed without mercy." "Yes," Sarah agreed. "We did. We killed slavers who had just murdered the escort ships protecting the Harmony's Grace. We killed raiders who threatened to skin children and use their bones for trophies. We killed those who have terrorized this sector for decades while the Council wrung its hands and did nothing. The Council seeks peaceful solutions." "The Council seeks to avoid conflict," Sarah interrupted. "Even when conflict is the only answer. Tell me, Ambassador Thekval, how many ships have the Korthak destroyed in the last decade? How many colonies have they raided? How many beings have they taken as slaves?" Thekval was silent. "I'll tell you. 342 ships destroyed, 57 colonies raided, over 100,000 beings taken as slaves. And what did the Council do? Send strongly worded messages. Impose trade sanctions that the Korthak ignored because they're pirates. You did nothing that mattered." She turned to address the full chamber. "We humans have a saying. The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. You are good people. All of you. But you did nothing. And evil triumphed again and again." A new voice spoke up. Commander Velthari had been given special permission to address the Council. She stood on a lower platform, her wings still pale from her ordeal but held high with dignity. "I was there," she said. "I watched my escort ships die. I heard the Korthak leader threaten our children. I prepared to watch my people become slaves. And then the humans came." She looked around the chamber, meeting as many eyes as she could. They came knowing they were outnumbered 6-1. They came knowing the Council would probably condemn them for their actions. They came anyway, because there were children to protect. She turned to the section where several young refugees from her ship sat with their families. "Ask those children if they think the humans are monsters. Ask them if they would rather the humans had followed Council protocols and negotiated, while they were dragged away in chains. Ask them if they care that the humans broke your rules to save their lives." Young Keelix stood up, his small voice carrying surprising strength. The humans saved us. They were scary when they fought the bad ones, but they were kind to us. Lieutenant Rodriguez showed me pictures of Earth. He taught me a word. Hero. It means someone who protects others even when it's dangerous. The humans are heroes. Several other children nodded, murmuring agreement. One, a tiny Telvanni girl, added, "The human doctor sang to me when I was scared." Her voice was pretty. Ambassador Zixa Theta of the Altarian Collective, an ancient being whose species was known for their wisdom, spoke slowly. The humans raise an uncomfortable point. We have become so civilized, so dedicated to peace that we have forgotten that some threats only respond to strength. We have let our fear of violence make us victims of those who embrace it. So we should become barbarians? Vekval chimed. No, Sarah Chen said. You shouldn't. You should remain exactly as you are, peaceful, civilized, dedicated to art and science and philosophy. The galaxy needs that. It needs your light. She straightened, her voice growing stronger. But the galaxy also needs someone willing to stand in the dark, someone willing to be the monster that monsters fear, someone who can do terrible things so you don't have to. We volunteer for that role. You would be our weapons? Someone asked, disgust clear in their voice. No, we would be your guardians. There's a difference. A weapon is pointed wherever its wielder chooses. A guardian chooses where to stand, and we choose to stand between the innocent and those who would harm them. Sarah touched a control and new images appeared. Human colonies across the galaxy. Humans working alongside other species. Human children playing with alien children. Human artists collaborating with alien musicians. Human doctors healing alien patients. This is who we are most of the time. 99% of our existence is peaceful. We trade, we explore, we create, we love. We form friendships that cross species lines. We adopt your customs, learn your languages, appreciate your art. We are not naturally violent. Violence is a tool we use only when necessary. The images changed to show the aftermath of various disasters. Humans rescuing colonists from a volcanic world. Humans delivering medicine to a plague-stricken system. Humans rebuilding after an asteroid strike. We use our strength to help. Our endurance to aid those in need. Our technology to heal and build. That is our choice. But when someone threatens the innocent, especially children, we make a different choice. We choose to remind the universe why humanity survived its death world, not through cruelty, but through the absolute determination to protect our tribe. And now all of you are part of our tribe. Ambassador Thekeval was not satisfied. And if you decide we are the threat? If you turn these capabilities against the Council? Sarah smiled, but it wasn't a warm expression. Ambassador, if we wanted to conquer the galaxy, would we be standing here asking for your approval? Would we have saved those Korthek survivors? Would we be bound by any rules at all? We choose to be part of the Council because we believe in what it represents. But we also believe it needs protectors who aren't afraid to get their hands dirty. A new figure entered the chamber. Warlord Grax in chains, escorted by Council security. He had been captured alive when his escape pod was retrieved. His presence caused a stir. You want to know about humans? Grax growled. I'll tell you. They're insane. They flew through fire that would have destroyed any sane being. They boarded ships in the middle of combat. Their marines kept fighting even when wounded. One human missing an arm killed 3 of my warriors before he finally fell. They're not natural. They're wrong. Sarah Chen looked at him steadily. Wrong? A Warlord Grax, we're exactly what evolution intended. We're persistence hunters from a world where giving up meant death. We're pack animals who learned that together we're stronger than any individual threat. We're problem solvers who turned a hostile world into our home. And we're protectors who will cross the galaxy to save strangers because that's what we choose to be. She turned back to the Council. We propose this. Humanity accepts the position of prime defense force for the Galactic Council. We will maintain fleets in key sectors. We will respond to distress calls. We will hunt those who prey on the innocent. We will be the sword and shield of the Council, but we will do it our way. No bureaucracy, no committees, no hesitation when lives are at stake. And in return? Ambassador Zix Theta asked. In return, you let us do what is necessary. You don't question our methods when we're protecting the innocent. You don't condemn us for showing no mercy to those who show none themselves. You accept that sometimes, to preserve the light, someone must be willing to walk in darkness. The Council chamber erupted in discussion. Representatives turned to each other, voices rising in debate. But Sarah noticed something. The representatives from species that had been raided, that had lost people to pirates and slavers, were nodding. They understood. Finally, the Council moderator, an ancient AI that had observed organic civilizations for millennia, spoke.